What I would like to do next is, if I go to the final project, if I click on this button, so this is to be able to create new roles. So I can create new role here. If I say admin, here we have the slug. If I add something else, for example test, you can see in the slug input we have the dash in the middle. Yeah, this is done with JQuery. So a part of this, what do we want to do? Add the permissions for each roles. So for example, for this role, well, I would just add, like, for example, test, and then if I put comma, as you can see, we have like this badges, right? This is a badge from Bootstrap. It's a plugin. So this is something which is showing very nice, yeah. And these are, for example, if I put another one, put comma, as you can see, test 3, and every time I put a comma, so every time I put a permission, this will show like this. So if I save this into the database, well, this will be related to this role, right, which is in this case admin test. Well, actually what I would like to do, make this functionality. And so what I want to do now, yeah, if I go here, as you can see, we have the same page, but this is not working. So if I add something here and comma and something else, so this is not working at the moment. That's why I would like to show you how to do this next. Yeah. Then if I go to the browser, let me show you this link. This is a Bootstrap tag inputs. If you go to this link, I put the link in the description as well. You can download this plugin. It's like a plugin from Bootstrap, and it's very nice looking view, right? When you're gonna insert the permission for each role, you can have this kind of design and this kind of functionality. So if you want to download this, you just press on this link, click on that here, and I have this downloaded already. I'm gonna disarchivate these files. Inside of this folder dist, here we have, well, if you want to see more example, we have these pages, so you can try it. So I just need to take those two files. So let's copy these files and add it in our project. So let me just copy the CSS, go to the project, which in my case is www, and I have the Laravel me web app and public. I have the CSS and then the admin here. I'm gonna paste this. Well, let me just copy that again. And once again, I need to go to dist, just copy this file and paste it inside of this folder, right? And now next I'm gonna copy this one and I will put it inside of the JS admin, and here I'm gonna paste that file. So now we have the files which are gonna help us to build that small boxes. So inside of our project, what do we want to do? First, insert in the header, in the footer, in the dashboard. Remember, we need to add the CSS in the header, and the footer we can add the JavaScript. So if we go to, let's go to the create page here. Inside of this create is where we have the form. So here, I'm just gonna create a section, and I'm gonna give the name CSS role page, because here I'm gonna add a link for that file, and then another section which will be called JS role page. So I'm gonna put the CSS here. So this is just gonna be a link of CSS. I'm gonna paste that here, and here is the root which will bring that file. I just copy it from that plugin. If I go to public CSS admin, we have the file we have just copied. So this is the root, right? This slash first slash means the base root, which is public. Then let me just show you that for those who don't know how this root works, but it's very simple. So this is the public, the main folder, the CSS, the admin, and then the file, which is Bootstrap tags input.css. So let me just do for the JavaScript, and this is a link for that file JavaScript, and this is pretty much similar. So what this does, we'll call this file here. So we have the slash in front, which is looking for the public folder, which is the main folder, then the JS folder, admin, and then the Bootstrap tags input.css. Let me view now if this is working. If I go to the create, which we have the form where we want to do this, and this, if I refresh this, you can see something changed. But let me just check this. This is working, but some CSS is missing, some CSS, some style. So let me just inspect this. If I go to header, I need to look for the CSS. Is not here, it's not included. But if I go to the bottom, I have the file for the JS. It's this one here. So something is wrong with the CSS. If I want to see if the JS file is working, if the root is correct, I just open this, right click, open in a new tab, and if you see the code, this means is there and is find it. Okay, just to make sure it's right. So let's see with the CSS. Let me check the root. If I check the root looks okay. Let me just see. Oh, well, I think this, you see, this one is included in the dashboard, JS rule page. Yeah, this is done already. We have done it previously, but so this is integrated in dashboard. But this one here is new, and we haven't added to the dashboard, so we need to add it to dashboard in the layout, right? So if I go to the layout dashboard, you see I have the JS role page, which is already we have been done it before. So that's the section for the page, for the role page, and this is done. But the CSS is not done. So it's this one for the JS. Remember that is this one. It's all the section, right? But this one is not done it. So let me just go on the header here and see if you see we haven't added this section. That's that yield of the CSS. So let me just write this. Well, let me just copy this and just change the parameters. So let me paste it here, and then I'm gonna put CSS and then role page. So that's the one which will include the CSS as well. So if I go back here, if I refresh this, well, I have something a bit better. Let me just check. Test, comma. Well, something is doing, but still missing test2, comma. So we have the word, but there is some CSS. So we need to change something here. First, what I have to do, if I go to that file of JavaScript, if you see is this file here. If I open this, I need to change the label. Yeah, because it's used in Bootstrap 3, but we have a Bootstrap 4 in our project. So what we need to do, because in Bootstrap 4 has been changed this label with badge. So let me change this with badge. And now if I save this, go to browser, if I refresh this, and if I comma, well, let me just do Control F5 to refresh the cache of the browser. Just do that. Don't forget to do that, because this has to apply, refresh the cache. So as you can see, these badges are not transparent. Actually there was white. So as you can see, this is working. The only thing left is to do this input in full width. So let me go here. If I do inspect on this, for this input, no, for this div, I'll do width 100%. So as you can see, this will almost fixing the field, right? So let me just do something. Let me just close this and go to the CSS file. So if I go, well, what I need to do for this div with 100%. If I go to code here, if I go to the CSS, the file of CSS, which is this one, and this one here, I need to delete, do the width has to be 100%. And if I save this, go to the browser and refresh this with Control F5 to clear the cache as well. As you can see, this is almost as the ones which are above of this. So, but the only thing we need to change the height of this input. You see, is a little bit smaller than the other one. So if I go here to this field, so let me just take out line 8, which you see this one. So let me just comment this line. If I save this and refresh the page, now we have the design we want. So now let's do something here. Test, comma, test. See, this is working now. So now we have all functionality of the form ready, and we can insert the date and send it to the controller. But before we insert the data and send it to the controller, I need to do something else here in the final project. You see, if I type here something, admin, and just space another word, test, for example, and another test, you see, well, let's change project manager. You see, through jQuery, what we are doing inside of the Slug, we are changing this. Where we adding this, and we put where the space it is, we add a dash. Then this is done through jQuery, right? And so if I go here and write project manager, you see here is not doing anything. So we need to add it manually. But I don't want to do it manually. I just want to be autofill it. So I need to do this using jQuery. So here, this slug will be used in the code later on for the gates, for the directives, for middleware. So later on we're gonna see it. So let's go to the code, to the create. Here is where we're gonna do that, which is this field, right? Where is the slug? So here we're gonna do this, and I'm using this field, above field, to send the data to this field, right, to the slug field. So if I go down here where I have the section JavaScript, I'm gonna paste the code here, and I'm gonna explain each on any line. So let's just put a script tag, and now what I'm doing here, first line is document ready. When the document is ready, well, I'm executing what is inside of the function, which is all this. For those who don't know what this first line. So now let's see the first line of this code. What I'm doing, you see, I have this ID, yeah, of this field. So I'm searching for this ID to identify this field, yeah, this field, because I'm writing on this field, right? So I'm identifying this field through this, right? In jQuery you find the field through the ID like this, right? And then I'm using kup, the function, anytime I'm typing something in the field, on this input field. Every time I'm typing something, I'm executing the function which has all this code inside. Okay, so first line here, I'm setting a variable which is called string, and then I'm looking for the ID, role name, yeah, and I'm taking the value. I'm getting the value of this field. So if I type something on that field, this whatever I type on that will save in this variable, right? And then I take this variable here and I'm filtering this. I'm using the replace, right, which is replace function, and I'm replacing the space. What is in this? It is in this inside of this, so which will be through the regular expressions. I'm looking for the space and replace it with a dash, right, just to be able to define that slug. So then I'm using the to lowercase, which is what it says to do. So I'm putting this in lowercase. I'm transforming this in lowercase, and then I'm looking for the role slug, which is the next field, the under, and I'm setting the value of the attribute or the value, yeah, with the value of the variable string, which is this one here. Yeah, so I'm adding this just to be able to send this to the controller and then save it. So this is one step of this field, but then we have the last line here. Well, I need to add this sign on here, and what I'm doing, I'm selecting this field, yeah, through the ID, and I'm looking for the attribute which is called placeholder, and I'm setting that with the variable, with the value of this variable, which is this one. So to be able to see what is going on, what is with what we are having in this field, because I'm setting this the value, but here I'm setting the value of the placeholder. There are two different things, yeah, just to make sure. Well, let me just add the sign here again. And then if I save this and go to the browser, if let's type something here, I don't know, project, I put a space here. If you look on the Slug now, you see this is updating automatically live, right? Space. And if I add something else, manager, for example, you can see this Slug is created. If I do something else, every time I put a space and something after, the spaces will be replaced. So I've had a line, but dash, but should be a space. So just test, and you can see every time there is a space, where is a space, like here and here, this will be changed, replace it with a dash. Okay, so now it's working correctly. Everything is working here. Let me just add create, comma, update, comma, delete, whatever. Anyway, so this is working perfectly now. Okay, now let's send this data to the controller, to the story method. If I go to the controller now, and I have the store method, which is this one here, what I have to do here, receive all this data and save it to the database. So let's see what this form is sending me. And if I type request inside of DD, dump and die, to be able to see what this request is has inside. So if I refresh this and fill this form, let me just fill this form with some data, for example this data, and then if I do submit, if I go to the request here, if I go to this one here, and inside I have the parameters. So here I have the field that form sent. So I have, you see, the role name, role slug, and then I have the role permissions, which is just a string, well, a bunch of strings separated by comma, but it's an entire string. So I just need, what I need to do, split those words and create an array inside of the controller, and then for each of the word, which will be a regular permission, this will be saved in the database for the role we are saving as well. So let's go to the controller now, and what we're gonna do, let's do first and call, for example, role permission. Yeah, so let's call let's get this role permission. If I save this and refresh now in the browser, you will see this is just a string, right? It's a string, but we know that this is a list of permissions. So now what can I do? Let me just delete this, and let me just go here down, and let me just paste the code, and I will explain it. Yeah, is very simple. So first, this variable, what I'm doing here, I'm using the explode, and what is do is split the word by the comma. Where the comma is where is finding a comma will split the word. So this is the variable I'm getting that word with all the permissions, right? So I'm creating an array inside of this variable with all the permissions. So if I comment this, and let me put a dd here and just put that variable, and let me show you what this will have. So if I refresh this, you see we have the array of all the permissions. I have a space here, but probably I have added before. Well, this doesn't has to be there. I'm referring to this one here, but anyway, now I know I have this array with all the permissions, so I need to save this to database. I do a for each here, and I'm passing all this array and using the variable as I give the name permission. I call the permission model here, yeah, added to this variable. Well, this means it's not integrated, so I need to add it here on the top. So use up, and permission, this is the permission model, yeah, because we need to insert it here to be able to use it. So now you can see it's not so it looks okay now. So I have this variable here which has the permission model instantiated, and here I use the variable and call the name of the database, and I'm saving the permission which is in this variable. So it will be for, which is this one, yeah, so means for each value of this array, which is this one, and this one, right? Then I'm taking the value of the slug from the database. Remember, we have the slug as well in the permission. So if you see, is this one here. We have this table here, permissions. If I open this, remember we have the name, yeah, and the slug, right? And now I take the slug through the request, well, through the permission instance of the permission model, and I'm setting this with this value, which is using the string to lowercase. So just make all this lowercase, and string replace, which I'm replacing the space with the dash, because I have some permissions with 2 or 3 words. So, and then this is the value of this variable permissions. So this can be one of these. Yeah, in this case we have just one word, but we can have like more words or 3 words for the permission. That's why I'm doing this setup of this permissioned name. Yeah, we're using those 2 functions, right? And then I'm using the save, which I'm saving the permission. And then another thing I have to explain here, what I'm doing here after I'm saving the permission. Well, the name on the slug on the permission table, I need to create the relation between roles and permissions. So in the between this permission and the role. So I have this role variable, which is this variable, and this is the instance of the role, and I'm taking the permissions, which this is the relation. This is remember, we have created this relation of permissions method, which we have created in a role model, and then we use the attach method of Laravel and as a parameter permission ID, and this will create the relation, and then we save it. So this is what this line, last two line does, create the relation between permissions and role. So if I go to the role here, you see we have the relations. This is the relation for the permissions with the role. Remember, we have done this. This is to get or save the permissions related to this role. As well, if we go to the permissions, you can see we have the relation with the roles. You see, is this method here we have created before. So through this relation, we can get relation roles for this permission or save it as well. So we're using attach here, which is from Laravel, a method function for the Laravel. If I go to the documentation, let's search for attach. You can see here, this is give us information on what this is doing. So this attach is what this does. If I go here to attach a role to a user by inserting a record in the intermediate table that join the model, use the attach method. So if you want to view more about this, just read through this page and you will definitely get and understand this method. It's very easy to use it, but just to know what this does, I like to explain a little bit what this does. And remember that this attach method is using the pivot table. So if I go to the migration here, remember we have created a pivot tables. These are the relation table, right? These are the tables are referencing the roles with the permissions and the permissions with the role, right? So that's why I just want to explain what this attach method is doing. So now we know this for each is doing what is doing is assigning every permission for the role. So if I go to this role permission table, so the ID will be the same for this. So the ID is saving here. Let me just uncomment this line. So it is setting up here. And then when we're using the role here, this will know what the ID to use to be able to save it in the relation table, right? Let's test this now, and this will make more sense once we're gonna test it, right? I hope you understand how this process works, but it's very easy to understand. And then if I go to the browser now, let me just refresh this, and then let me just create. Let's create a new role, for example, now, right? If let's say, for example, let me just create a new role. And then here, let me just add some permissions. So just for testing now, we're gonna add some random permissions just to be able to. So let's say create role, comma, view role, edit role, and so on. So let's do delete as well, for example. Yeah. Now, if everything is correct, if I do submit, okay, we have this error. Laravel roles permissions. Okay, doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. Well, let me just check this. If I go to the database, you see there is a role permissions. It has to be plural. So let me just change that because I have missed a letter here. Let me change this here. I'm gonna alter table. Just put the S here let me save this, apply, finish. And this happens because when we have created the migration, here we have miss a S. I have miss a S, so I will change this here just to make sure when you're gonna run this migration, this will be correct for you. Save this, and now close this because I don't need it. And now everything is changed. Everything should be fine now. Let me just run again this this form. So let me just type again. Okay, so now if I do submit, you see I have new extra roles, no? But this one here is from the first intent. I have tried before, but the permission, the role was saved. The only thing wasn't saved the relation. That's why we have it twice. So you see I have the role permission relation table, which is this one here. If I open again this, select rows, you see I have the role. Well, I have the ID of the role, and then for the same role I have saved each of the permissions. Remember we had 4 permissions. So if I go to roles now, select rows, you see I have the roles here that I have created, and this is the last one, new role, yeah, and this has the ID of 6. And then if I go to permissions, if I select rows, you see I have the, well, I have 5, but the last 4, which are from 2 to 5, which are the permissions. You see, these are the permissions. So you see the IDs, check the IDs. You see these are the 4 permissions. Yeah, these are 2, 3, 4, 5. The first one was created with the first try, I suppose. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So we have the permission. I have the role, which is this one here with ID 6, and then we have the if I go to role permission now, you see I have the related. So this is the ID of the role, and these are the ID of the permission. So these are the is the relation between this role and those permissions. So this is how this works. So it's saving the role, and I put the permissions here, and this is saved correctly. And this is how this works now. Later on we're gonna use this, and we'll see how what this is for, and how we're gonna really use this. But this will be later on, okay? So let's see how we can delete the roles and their permissions. Now, if I want to delete this, I don't want to delete just the role, but as well, I need to delete each of the permissions that are associated to this role. So I need to delete the permission from the permission table, which is associated to this role. So let's see the delete process. So let me just go to the controller here, and we have the destroy method, right? Here what I'm doing, I'm just deleting the role, yeah, through this method delete. What I have to do here, I have to use a method similar to attach. So this attach has a reverse, which is detach, right? And detach, what will do, delete the relations. So let me just go back to destroy, and let me just call this role. Then I will call the relation, which are the permissions, and then we are saying that has to do detach, yeah. And what this does is what the attach was doing, but this is reverse, which will be detach those relations, but delete them as well. So let's go to the documentation here. So let me just search here for detach. Okay, if I search for detach, you can see I have here the documentation. If you read a little bit about this, what this says, the detach method will delete the appropriate records out of the intermediate table. So we'll delete all the relations. What this doesn't do, will not gonna delete the permissions and either the roles from their tables, right? Just to make sure this is clear, right? Then if I go here inside of the code, let me just test this first. So if I go to the project here, and what I would like to do, for example, if I delete this, let me just refresh first, and if I delete this, remember I have role, then I have their permissions, which are the 4 permissions we have created for this, and assign it to this. So if I do delete, this was deleted, but if I go to the, so let me just see, this is the role we had, but we have deleted. So this is here because we haven't refreshed. So if I click on this here, this will refresh that, and you see the role is deleted now. These are the permissions. This will stay the same. So if I go to role permissions, this the detach method will delete this relation. So if I click on this to refresh that, you see the relations are deleted. There are no relations between those. So the only thing we have to do now, delete as well those permissions which was belonging to that role. So if I click on that, you see they are still there. So I need to delete that as well. And how I do this, if I go here, before I delete the role, I want to, or I can delete the permissions before or after. You can do wherever you like. So if I do roles and then call the relations, which is the permissions, and then here I will do delete. And what this will do, will delete the permissions that belongs to the relation, to this role. So I delete the permission, I delete the role, and then I delete the relation, right? So this is one of the way to do it working. So I need to delete this manually because I don't have any way to delete through the, so I will delete all this, yeah, because now I don't have any relation with this. So just apply, finish. So this is deleted now. I don't have anything. I have just two roles, and roles and permissions empty. Yeah. Well, let's create another one, just update some of this. Let's update this one, edit this one, and let's add some permissions here. So let's say admin create, for example, comma. Well, I just realized this is not gonna work because we don't have the edit working. So let me just create this. Yeah, let's create that as the only way at the moment that we can add permissions. So we can't edit. So let's create a new one. Let's do admin 3, for example, and let me just add admin 3 create. Okay, now I have these permissions. This will be assigned to this admin role, which is, so these permissions will be assigned to this role, which has admin 3. So if I click submit, now I have this role, and this has will have their permission. So if I go to the roles here, if I refresh this, you see I have this admin 3, which is another role which I just added. If I go to permissions, I'll refresh the table and I will have the permissions for this role, right, which are those 4 which we have just created. And if I go to role permissions, let me see the relation. Now if I click on that, you see the relations. That's the 10, the ID 10, which is this role, and then we have for the, so this is for the same role, we have these IDs which belongs to each of the permissions we have created, which are these ones. You see these ones, and these are the all the permissions for this role. So now what I want to do, if I delete the role, I need to have this relation deleted as well, and as well the permissions for this, which are these ones. In this case we have just this one, but later on we're gonna have more. So let's go to the project now, and now if I delete this one, for example, the last one, if I delete, this was deleted. Now if I go here, so role is deleted. Let me go to roles permissions, and this is the relations we have just created. If I click on this, we have no relation, so this is correct, and we have to see these permissions, the last we have done. So if I click refresh to this, as you can see, the permissions are deleted as well. So this is how we can delete as well the roles and their permissions and the relations as well. Okay, so now what I would like to do is this edit page. If I click on this page, this is the edit page. It has a form which where I can edit this role. So if I would add any permission here, I should be able to see them here. Yeah, so what do we like to do? We would like to bring the permissions as we are with the same design in the create, right? So let's first add the functionality of this. If I do, you see, if I do test, comma, test1, comma, this is not using that badges, you know, that Bootstrap that we have added in the create form. So to fix that, if we go to the create, we just have to copy this, the CSS and the JavaScript, and just paste it on this page, right? So let me just paste that on here, save it, and if I go back, refresh that, now let's type something, create, and just add something here, a comma, and as you can see, this is working now. Yeah, so we have done this to work. So if I submit now, if I go to the controller, this will call the update method. We have the validation, we have saving the role, we are saving the role through here, but we need to save the permission as well in this method. So for this we need to add the following code. So let me just go to store here. I'm just copying this because will be pretty much similar, and I will let me just see, and I will paste this on the save method, right? And what this will do, I will get all the from the form, you see, through the request. I will save in the role, then I will get the, you know, save in this variable what I get from the role permissions field, and do the same, separate it where the comma is, you know, because this will be a list of permissions, and then I will do a for each, because this is will be right, and using attach to create the relations, yeah, between the role and permissions. So it's pretty much the same. Yeah, this is one of the steps, but the other thing I need to do, I need to bring the permission, or send the permission from the edit page, from the edit method, to show them here. So if we have any permissions already in related with this role, I need to show them here. So what I need to do here, I need to use the permission from the role which are in this variable, which we already send it through this variable to the viewer, right? So we have an instance. So this is the name that we are using in the view. So let's go to the We'll save this. We've done the process of updating. We have to do something else, but which is this one. We are missing something, but we are gonna do it. So let me just bring the data, the permissions we have already in database related to each role. So here, what I have to do inside of this attribute value, I need to bring those permissions that are in the database. And how I do this? Well, I can use here inside for each. Let me just paste the code and I will explain. So this is just will be is a for each directive of Laravel for each, and let me just arrange this a little bit. And as you can see, I have a for each, and then I have what are the permissions? Well, I have to change here, so I have to do role and then bring the permissions. And then through that variable I'm showing the name of the permission, and I separate this with a comma here, and this will this for each will go through all the permissions that are related with this role, and then I'm showing that here, right? This was simple. If I save this now, I don't have any permission for this role. So if I refresh this, we don't have any permission here. So I need to let's create some permission. So if I create this here, let me just create a new role here, admin 4 without a dash, and let me just put here some permissions, because I don't have any permission for other either. I'm just creating now a new role just to have them there. So let's do admin 4 create comma admin 4 update, for example. No, if I do submit now, I have this. If I go to edit, you see this is bringing me the permissions through this for each, which is this one here. Yeah, this will take the role instance, which is this one, which I'm sending from the edit method, and then I'm looking inside of the permissions relation. This will bring a array of objects, and inside of this variable I have each of the permissions, and I'm choosing the name and showing the name separated with a comma. Yeah, inside of role, you see this is the permission I'm talking about. Yeah, so this is, let me just go back, is this one. Yeah, just to make sure you have it clear. Yeah, so we can use it as it is. Okay, so now we have we have brought this here. We send this, and now we can send this. If I go to edit here, once I submit that form, I'm calling this update. Then I'm searching inside of this field, which is coming from the form, through the request, and then I'm saving this again. But there is something which I have to do here. If I delete those, and click submit, if I go to permissions, if I refresh this, this remains here, so that's not correct. You see the relation. So I've done the update. So this is the role 11. Let me just refresh this. This is the last role I have created with the ID 11 admin 4. So there is a problem here when I am updating this. So if I click on this, you see I have those two permissions. So what I want to do when I am updating this, it's okay to be updated, but I need to delete the old ones. So delete the permissions and the relations I had. And what do I have to do here? let me just copy this to don't write it again. So I need to add those lines here without the one is in the middle. So role permission delete. So I need to delete actually detach first, delete the relation that exists, delete the permission, because we need to delete the permission once we want to update that. So let me go once again, because I want you to understand this. So through this request, I am getting the data from the for, right? Bear in mind that we already have data in database. Yeah, we have the role here. I'm validating the data. Then I'm taking the database name Slug from the role, and I'm setting this with the values that are coming from the form, which are those two. Then I'm saving the role. Yeah, so these are the roles. This is the role. Then I go to database, to the permissions. I'm deleting the relations in the pivot table, the roles with these permissions. I'm deleting the permissions that are created for this role. Then I'm receiving the permissions from the form and save it in this variable, yeah, which are the role permissions through the request. And I'm doing the exploit to separate the permissions where the comma is, yeah, just to create an array of permissions. Then I'm doing a for each. I'm going through each of the permissions and assign again back to I'm saving first here the permissions, yeah, in the database of the permissions, in the table of permissions, and then I'm assigning back. I'm assigning again these relations and save it again, and I'm redirecting that again. Yeah, which is this line, the last one. Well, I hope you understand this process. Yeah. Okay, so I hope this was clear for you. Let's test this now and see if this is working. If I save this and go back to the browser here, and let me just refresh this, and if I click on this, okay, so if I go here, if I go to, let's go to roles, yeah, refresh this. I have the role 11, admin 4. I have permissions, which are for admin 4, which are these two, and then I have this relation, role and permissions. So the ID and the ID of the role and ID of the permission. So if I go here, let me delete this one. Let me delete create and add a new one. Let me add delete, for example, admin 4 delete, right? Now the create has to be deleted from the related relation, and as well for the permission table, but we have to add this one. So if I click on that, let me just go back. As you can see, I have update and delete. So this is correct. Yeah, this is bringing the correct data, but I want to see that the database was updated correctly. So let's go back to the role. This is correct, the same. If I go to permissions, was create and update, and now I should have update and delete. As you can see, this was updated but wasn't been deleted. So let me just fix it. I think I'll know how to fix this. So let me just see now. If I go to role and permissions, if I refresh, you see, was deleted the old relation, and this is the new relation. Yeah, so this is working correctly as well. The only thing is not working is this one, and I think, yeah, so I have 20 and 21, which are this one, 20 and 21. Yeah, so these are correct. Well, I have to do something here. I have to change this order, so I have to put delete first. Yeah, if I put delete first and detach after, and this is what we're gonna do, what we're gonna fix that. So let me try again and do it again. Let me first delete manually this because they are not this will not going to be deleted from the application. So I need to delete this, apply, and finish. And let's go back again. So roles, I have the admin 4, permissions are those two, admin 4 delete, admin 4 update, and the relation is this one, which is correct. So let me go back again, refresh this page, and if I go to edit now, let me just change delete. So delete this one, just and add the create. So what I want to do, delete the delete one and add the create permission. So if I do submit now, let me just go back again. You see this is correct. So let's see in the database now. Let's see here, roles is the same. Yeah, 11. Permissions is the well, you can see the delete is deleted and the create is added. And you see this is the old 20 and 21. If I refresh this again, and you see 22 and 23. So this is correct because this was the old ones. When I've done update, this has been deleted, the old ones, and add the new ones. You see, this update was being added again, but with a different ID. So this is correct. Well, I hope this explanation wasn't that much for you. I hope you understand what I was trying to explain here. I think after this should be easy to understand. So now we have the update and functionality, right? We can update roles and their permissions. So once we are doing the update, the old permission will be deleted and the new ones will be added to the database. Okay, so now next, what we're gonna do, we're gonna bring the permissions in this table. You see, we have this column which are showing just the text, but we can bring here and show the permissions for each of the row. And to be able to do that, so to do that, we have to go to the controller. Actually, let's go to the index here. Here we have the table, which we are showing that. Yeah. So here in this TD, we have just a text. And let's go to the controller. And if we go to the index, here we have the variable where we are sending the roles, and we send this in this array. And this is the name where which we are using in the view. But inside of this variable, we have the relation as well. So if you remember, in the role model, we have this permissions function, which brings the related permission for this role. So as well, we have the for permissions. If we need to bring the roles or the role for the permission, so which is this one. You see this method. But at the moment, let's use the one which is in the role model, which are the permissions related. Yeah. So just to know that we have the permissions for each of the role inside of this variable, right? So now in the view, I'm just gonna paste the code here. I'm gonna explain what is this. But simply, what we do here, we are checking that this role inside of this condition, we are checking that this role is not equal with null, and this means that has permissions, right? So just to have like a check. To don't show any other things than if we have the permissions. Yeah. So then inside of this for each, we are going through all of the permissions. We inside of a spam using this class of badge from Bootstrap, we are showing each of the permissions for this role, and we are using the name of the permission. from the permission table, right? So now let me save this. So I need to save this, and if I go to the browser now, refresh this, as you can see, the only one has permissions is the admin4, and it's showing all the permissions for this one here, which are very nice look badges, right? And now we have we have in this table each of the roles, which are these ones, and we have the slugs, and for each of the roles we have the permissions, which are showing on this column. For these ones we don't have anything, so this is empty. If you like this video, please give a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to our channel.